Hello and welcome back to the latest edition of the EFL Betting Show here on the Odds Now YouTube channel, where myself, Matt Hill, and EFL Master Gab Sutton try to unearth some gems for you ahead of the betting slate, the upcoming weekend. Now, it's a little bit of a funny show this week because we have a full slate of Championship, but then Leagues 1 and 2 are hugely affected by the second round of the FA Cup. So there are a couple of games going ahead in League 2, but mostly everybody else either has a week off if they've been knocked out or they're in FA Cup second round action. So we've permitted selections from the FA Cup and League Two, obviously, if you desire. I know Gab has chosen to take a focus on the Championship. I've gone for a little bit of variety. But first things first, Gab, how are you doing? How's your week been?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Matt. Looking forward to getting stuck into the EFL action. EFL action? I'm so excited I'm getting my words wrong.
Yeah,
The
I know. I
EFL
can see.
the EFL action for this weekend. Obviously not great to be in a net loss at the moment. I'm sure you'll bring up the scores in a minute,
Oh, I
but
certainly will. I certainly
yeah.
will. No, no. But what
um,
what I will stress is, as I put our running profit and loss totals on the screen for we started this 2 weeks ago, of course, so we're 2 weeks in. Um, I will just stress profitable weeks for both last week. Gab, you could have had yourself in profit if you'd been a little bit braver, because your double chance selections of Bristol Rovers away at Mansfield and I think it was Morecambe away at Swindon, they both, not only did the double chance come in, they actually both won their game. So if you'd gone for the outright wins, you would be ahead of me in this race. But if buts and maybes, nobody will
better
remember that
to
when they look at the record.
better to walk in the right direction, Matt, than run in the wrong one. I'll
Well, do you
take
know what?
I'll take the
You know what? I'll
victory.
agree with that. I think over the course of the season, the double chance will see you right. But yeah, always a bit frustrating when you feel like you should have been that little bit braver. But yeah, 2 from 3 for you last week. Sunderland held up Millwall, unfortunately, preventing a full house. And then I had one of my games actually fell victim to Storm Burt. I had Fleetwood MK Dons finishing a draw, but they didn't even kick off as it was. I mean, does that count as a draw technically? No,
No.
I don't. I don't think I'm going to give myself that. But yeah, 1 from 2 in the selections that actually went ahead. You tried to warn me off Birmingham against Shrewsbury. I didn't listen, and I had to take my medicine there. Gareth Ainsworth, in Gareth we trust, obviously. But we did have a good winner in the form of Louis Barry, anytime goal scorer for Stockport. He actually helped himself to a brace away at Burton. 12-5 he was to score any time, and that nudges me into profit for the season, 0.23 points ahead. Gab, minus 1.9 points ahead. But looking at your selections this week, that could turn very quickly, because you've gone for quite aggressive picks this week, I would say, on the whole. Now we start in the Championship, my only Championship selection. Gab, as I say, all three from the Championship. And we've both gone for the same fixture, albeit slightly different selections. But Gab, we are on a wavelength here. I'm going for West Brom to beat Preston at 6-4. And you're going, as I say, a little bit more aggressive, West Brom to win to 0 at a gigantic looking 10-3. So I don't know. Do you want to kick us off with this one, Gab? Because obviously we're thinking along similar
Sure.
lines here.
Yeah, we are, aren't we? I mean, I saw the 6-4 for West Bromwich Albion, and I was very keen on that because as much as West Brom have drawn a lot of games recently, I do think they've tended to be the better side. They give up very little, and generally, although they were a little bit fortunate to get a point at Sunderland, they had to dig in for that one. Generally, they're the team that's a bit more on the front foot, especially against the weak sides in the league. So I like the 6-4 on Carlos Corberán's side, and they've kept clean sheets in 9 of their 17 league games so far this season. So that's impeccable defensive consistency. And even some of the games they've won, a lot of the time they've only conceded one goal in the other games as well. So they've been rock solid defensively this season. And they're facing a Preston North End side that have had issues up top. Milutin Osmaic has had a lengthy ban. If he's back, he's going to be short on match sharpness. Whereas I think West Brom, yes, they do need to get Josh Madger back into form. I think there's been some signs of that recently. But it's that defensive resilience where they've got Hegem at the back, who I'm a massive fan of. I do like Rakitic in midfield as well. So yeah, I've got a lot of trust in West Brom defensively, and I'm also not sure that Preston North End are going to be quite on their level. So yeah, I like that. I would certainly wouldn't put anyone off the 6-4 West Brom to win price, but I also like the 10-3 on the win to nil.
Yeah, you've gone a little bit more aggressive than me there with the win to nil, and I can see why. To be honest, I'd certainly, again, like you said, wouldn't put anybody off that. I've just leaned towards the 6-4, just out of a little bit of respect for Paul Heckingbottom, who I will say, I do think he's a good fit for Preston North End in terms of a manager that is capable of organising his teams well and sort of understands the fibre and the fabric of that fan base. I think in a team that they don't expect to be winning the championship, they just want to have a competitive team that is better than the sum of their parts, really, because they can't compete financially with the behemoths of this league, can they? But they can certainly put up a fight, and they have done for many years. They've always sort of floated around that, sort of teased and flirted with the playoff, haven't they, for many years, Preston, and or been rock solid in mid-table. And I think Heckingbottom's a man that can deliver that again. But I do just think there's a little bit of a quality gap between these two. When you look right across the 11s, I would add in the fact that Freddie Woodman was sent off for Preston, their number one goalkeeper, in midweek. So he's going to be suspended for this one. I always think that when you're a team based on solid foundations, losing your keeper can just unsettle things a little bit. So that's another thing that's nagging in my mind with this one. And West Brom, like you touched on, Gab, I think generally, even though both of these teams have been drawing a hell of a lot of games at the moment, West Brom have mostly been dominant. I know they had to hold on at Sunderland in midweek, but I think they had a 2-2 with Norwich where they had double the shot count of Norwich. They had 0 with Cardiff recently where they absolutely battered them and did everything but. They've also had an away win at Hull in that recent run, which was quite impressive. Whereas Preston, like we say, that's a lot of their draws. They've not been creating a lot of chances. I think they've had 9 shots on target in their last 4 games, which is not a huge amount.
That's basically 2 a game, isn't it? Which is it's not going to score you many goals.
It is. It's tough. It's tough going. And I noticed Heckingbottom's comments in midweek about the January window, and how he always felt that was going to be important for him coming in. So I always think when a manager's already referring to January in November, that's a little bit worrying because there's still quite a lot of games to negotiate, isn't there?
I know, because it's Paul Simpson did that last season, didn't he? As Carlisle manager in October or November, he wasn't really talking about January.
And as a fan, I was just sat there thinking, we've got 7 or 8 games left before January, and then even on the 1st of January, it's not like you're going to have 5 new signings ready to go, is it? I don't worry for Preston. I think Heckingbottom, like I say, is a good fit, but I worry for them in this particular game. And just as a final point on this one, I looked at the 2 fixtures between these 2 sides last season when Corberan was, of course, in charge of West Brom. A 3-0 win at the Hawthorns for them and a 4-0 win at Deepdale. So if he can follow that blueprint, I'm sure he'll be very confident of getting another win there and another feather in the cap for your win to nil as well. So both keen on West Brom. Sorry, Preston fans. Hopefully your team can prove us wrong, but I think we are aligned there that looks a solid selection. I guess I can go with my second pick because we don't have any more matching picks here, Gab. So I'm diving into the FA Cup here and I'm going for an upset. I fancy Crawley to beat Lincoln here at 29-10. Now, traditionally, I must say Lincoln, a side that I was very keen and very big on at the start of the season. Crawley, the polar opposite. I actually really feared for them, and I feared for them even more after Scott Lindsay departed the club for MK Dons. However, I think Rob Elliott deserves a lot of credit for the way he's gone in there and actually definitely exceeded my personal expectations, and I think a lot of the general expectations as well. He's made this team hard to beat. They're on a really good run of form at the moment. And most interestingly, their first win under Rob Elliott's tutelage was against Lincoln last month. This exact fixture played out in League One. Crawley won it 3-0, and it was quite a convincing victory as well. Not a lot between the sides in terms of stats. Crawley showing a clinical edge in the second half of that game. But I think Elliott strikes me as a very savvy tactical manager. You look at the way he had Gateshead playing in the National League. He's clearly very switched on to patterns of play and what have you. And I feel like he'll have learnt a lot from that victory, and he'll be quite relishing playing this Lincoln side again, particularly with his side considered huge underdogs. Lincoln, meanwhile, as I say, big fans of them and the work that Skubala has done. Think he's a fantastic coach as well. They always seem to outrun their odds in recent times. However, they are in a little bit of a sticky patch at the moment. The Imps results not really gone their way in the last few weeks, and I just wonder, when you're a side that is hoping to be pushing on a playoff push does some kind come to shove when it comes to having a cup run as well. A cup run can actually derail a league campaign a little bit, whereas I feel like with Crawley in their current position, there's a feel good factor around the place because they're probably punching above their weight at the moment. You also factor in home advantage here. I just think the price is a little bit too big here. I would have Crawley closer to 2-1 at home, and maybe Lincoln, around that 6-4 mark. I think the price has probably been formulated purely by the long-term data set of both of these teams, which is Lincoln are pushing the top 6 side in League One,
Sure.
Crawley one of the weaker sides in the division. But I think if you actually look at the recent patterns and the fact that Crawley price just appeals to me a little bit. I don't know what you make of that one, Gab, but
it's a fair shout. It's certainly a fair shout, Matt. I personally think that what I'm quite mindful of is that Lincoln City have got quite good depth this year. So whereas last season they were kind of they had this brilliant first 11, but maybe struggled a little bit when players got injured. This year, for instance, in attack, they've got 4 strikers who are all vying to start. They've got Ben House, who I really like, very good link-up striker. They've got Jovan McCarmer, who's come into the equation. Bailey Kedamatri on loan from Sheffield Wednesday, and I think another lad up there as well, Freddie Draper as well. So they've got 4 good strikers, and I think that definitely makes a difference in terms of being able to rotate and stay competitive. So I do think that that's probably going to help them. So I don't think I would necessarily go against Lincoln City, but I can see why you're drawn to the price for a home side for a team in the same league. That is quite a big, quite a chunky one.
Yeah, good points. I guess we'll see how it pans out. It was the price that suckered me in, to be honest, and I would expect Crawley to go off a little bit shorter when push comes to shove on Saturday afternoon. But Gab, over to you for your second pick. As I say, you're sticking in the Championship this week and keeping the faith with Portsmouth, who I think have done you a good turn in weeks gone by, actually. You're going for them again on that double chance, which, as you say, might not be exciting and sexy in the short term, but over the course of a season, backing teams double chances generally going to see you in a good spot.
Yeah, I think Portsmouth have got a great spirit about them under John Massinho. I love the culture that he creates. I think he's very good as a manager at reframing challenges as opportunities. And that's what enabled Portsmouth to overcome some of the hurdles that they had to overcome last season to win the League One title. Now they have players like Colby Bishop back fit, which makes a big difference. They've got Callum Lang, who I'm a big fan of in that attacking midfield area. I think they've been playing better than results probably suggest. And therefore, I think they're going to be a little bit underrated by the traders. And I think to get odds against for them to avoid defeat, I think is a pretty good price, given that their performance levels, other than Stoke away and maybe 1 or 2 other games, their performance levels have been pretty competitive. I'm happy to go with that, bearing in mind that, yes, Swansea did win at Derby in midweek, and they were very good for the first 25 minutes of that game. But actually, for the rest of it, they were very much on the back foot, and actually, it wasn't a great performance from Swansea, and they were a little bit fortuitous to get the victory. I also think Swansea can be vulnerable defensively with the high line that they play, given that they're not necessarily a great pressing side. They've only scored 16 goals all season, actually the same number as Portsmouth. Yes, they've actually got a better defensive record, but they're shown some signs in the last couple of games that they might be a little bit more vulnerable defensively. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking that that Portsmouth might be able to get something. Certainly, I'm happy to go with that for the odds against quotes.
So, Gab, I'm just taking a look at the EFL relegation odds there. Portsmouth in there at 5-6 to go down. The point where it's kind of like a coin flip either way in the eyes of the bookies, whether or not they're going to survive in the Championship. But you touch on there a great team spirit. I think results and performances have improved in recent weeks. What's your take on their prospects of survival? Because they seem to me like a team that are slowly warming to the task, if not in like spectacularly quick fashion. They are getting to grips with the division maybe a bit better.
I would think so, yeah. I think they've the togetherness at Portsmouth has always been there, other than 1 or 2 games like the 6-1 loss at Stoke around early October. They've been very competitive in all their games. I think they've got Colby Bishop fit now, which I think is going to be crucial, because I think he gives them that focal point up top. Maybe the summer didn't go quite as well as they might have hoped, so I think they'll be looking to strengthen in January as well. So yeah, I probably wouldn't price them at 5 to 6. I would still price them at odds on to go down, because I still think that there's teams there like Hull City, for instance, probably more questions than answers around them at the moment. Cardiff City, probably the same. QPR, certainly lots of issues there, although they did win at Cardiff in midweek. I think there's a lot of teams sort of 17th and below that you could probably ask questions of at the moment. So with that in mind, I'm not sure Portsmouth, given that they might be bottom of the league, but they have got a couple of games in hand. Yeah, I'm not writing them off.
Okay, good stuff. Portsmouth or the draw, double chance selections serving you very well last weekend. Of course, let's hope for more of the same there. My final pick, I've gone close to home, visited Carlisle last weekend, and unfortunately didn't make my way down to Brunton Park due to father duties. But yeah, I didn't miss any goals, but I did miss a good, encouraging performance from Carlisle against Doncaster, and a 0-0 draw there. And I think most Cumbrians would have taken that before the game. It extends an unbeaten streak to 4 games in all competitions, 3 in the league, which is, small steps. A win at Salford, and a draw at Bromley, where they were dominant, but did need a last-minute equaliser. All in all, things looking up a little bit, albeit slowly. I think most encouragingly, the patterns of play are a lot more promising. It seems like there's a bit of an understanding from Mike Williamson that there needs to be a little bit more of a mixing up in the playing style at the moment. He has stepped back on his principles a little bit, which is something we talked about him needing to do a few weeks ago, which is, fair play to him for that. And I generally think there's a lot more positivity around the place. However, this is a tough fixture coming up against a Crewe side who are enjoying a really good campaign and come here off a really good result. I know you last week, Gab, you fancied to maybe upset them, and they got a 2-0 victory there. Now, they followed that up with a 1-1 draw at Port Vale, another side competing at the top end of the division. That took a 90th minute equaliser for them to get that point. But draws have been a little bit of a theme for Crewe, actually, recently. They've drawn 4 of their last 7 in the league. And when you factor in as well that Carlisle are coming into this off back-to-back draws, this feels like a game where, again, these two teams may end up cancelling each other out. My main concern with Crewe is that they're not scoring an awful lot of goals. And Carlisle have really gone back to basics, with clean sheets being at the forefront of their sort of improvement. There's been only conceded 1 goal in the last 3 games, and that was a penalty. So I do think that we'll see this being a game of fine margins and few chances. When I consider a likely outcome here, I do think that a 0-0 or a 1-1 are right up there with the likeliest scores. So I quite like this bet. You can get both of those on side at 10-3 by backing the game to finish in a draw with under 3.5 goals in the match. That is with Sky Bet 10-3. So you're basically perming the 0-0 and the 1-1, which is a little bit quirky. But when I'm assessing this game and how it may pan out, that's kind of where I'm landing. So, Gab, feel free to pick that apart for me.
Well, you could have even gone braver and gone with under 2.5 goals.
Well,
because there's not going to be 3 goals in a game.
There's a reason why I say this, and you're right to flag this. So if you search for under 2.5 goals, the best price you'll find is 3-1. But bizarrely, right, Sky Bet have priced up these exact same. You're quite right to point out the exact same thing to occur, but a slightly bigger price. So it's a little bit of a rick in the system, but we'll take it by any which way we can. But yeah, you're quite right. Under 2.5 goals is exactly the same bet.
It's 3-1 or 10-3, because actually 10-3. Have I got this right? 3-1 is the equivalent of 12-3, isn't it?
No, 9-3. 9-3.
Oh right, yes.
Doing fractions on the spot. Yeah, we're doing fractions here. Yeah. No, you're right to ask, because it's a very weird quirk. But for some reason, Sky have decided that it is less likely to occur, even though it's the exact same thing. But I will take that, because as we know, every half point and third of a point can make a difference to that overall total. But yeah, I mean, look, generally you'll get 3-1 across the board for the under 2.5 goals, which is the exact same bet. So even if that Sky price changes, you're going to get 3-1 quite easily. And like I say, that basically gives you 2 options for a winner: a 0-0 or a 1-1, and they're scores that both teams have been enjoying quite frequently at the moment. All of Carlisle's last 4 games have gone under 2.5 goals, and Crewe, as I say, in their last 4 games have had 4. In their last 7 games, have had 4 1-1 draws. So it's how I could feasibly see this game playing out, and I think that will be continued encouragement for Carlisle as they look to recover and move up the league. And Crewe, you very rarely sniff a point away on the road, do you? Even if they maybe have grander expectations, I think they would probably quietly take that with the trip to Brunton Park. So that's the way I'm playing that one.
Interesting, yeah. Can we touch on Carlisle a little bit? Because I think for me the
We
big
can.
one is Callum Guy coming back fit, because I think that makes a huge difference. I don't think it's a coincidence that as soon as he's returned to the side, I think was it for Bromley or one of the games before that, immediately there's been an upturn in performances.
Yeah, it does. It does make a big difference. I think I don't think it would be unfair to say that he's maybe not looking fully fit just yet, which you would expect from such a long time on the sidelines. I think what has made a big difference actually is just having a bit of more of a settled back line with the 3 central defenders. There's been a significant step up in performance levels from both Sam Lavelle and Terrell Thomas. Lavelle had a difficult start to his Carlisle career. Came in. Into a struggling side in League One, did not hit the ground running at all, to put it lightly. He was given the captain's armband by Paul Simpson, but he never really struck much of a rapport up with the fans. And I think it is difficult when you're the captain in a really bad season. You are kind of at the front and centre of it. And
Yeah. You look at captains in the past, like for instance Danny Granger. I always felt had like a real rapport, real
connection.
affinity with the fan base. Yeah, so that can really make a
Yeah,
difference.
sure. And I think it would have been the easy option, to Lavelle's credit, to walk away at the end in the summer. Maybe he's stuck around in League Two. He's tried to rebuild his career, and I think he's playing in a protective mask at the moment after a facial injury. But he's really come into his own. And I think Terrell Thomas as well is a defender that he wants to play a little bit, and he made a few mistakes on in the season, but he's continued to play with that confidence. And adding in one of John Mellish or Ben Barkley into that 3, they just look a lot more settled at the back. I don't know if you're aware as well, Gab, but Harry Lewis has been dropped, and young Gabe Breeze has come in
Yeah,
between the sticks, the teenager.
he made a
He's
good
done.
save at Bromley, didn't he, Gabe Breeze?
He,
I seem to
he
remember.
did.
Yeah,
He's doing very, very well. He's a big, tall, commanding presence. Still got a bit of filling out to do, but very good shot stopper and very confident. And Carlisle have had a good record of bringing goalkeepers through over the years, and he looks like the latest one off the production
yeah.
line.
Well,
Obviously, a bit of a shame.
the other
A
thing
shame
is
for
that
Harry Lewis, but I
yeah,
mean, that had been coming. I think some time out the team will do him good in the long run as well.
yeah, definitely, because it feels to me like the name Gabe Breeze has been around Carlisle United for a few seasons now, even though he's still pretty young. So, yeah, hopefully he's had a few loan spells and he's kind of ready for this opportunity, and he can, make his mark.
Yeah, it looks like a very promising guy. I think there's actually already talk now of getting him, getting him tied down to a contract to avoid losing him for a pittance. But you would like to think under the new ownership, they can compete financially and keep hold of these assets a little bit longer. But we shall see. I'm cautiously optimistic about the direction of travel, but it's going to be a slow burner, I think. And hopefully the positive signs continue. Anyway, you've set me off on my Carlisle rant for the week. Now we go back on to yourself for your final pick, which is Burnley to win to 0. You've gone for a handsome price again here, 3-1. Talk us through this one.
Well, Burnley have 1-0. They've kept it clean sheets in 11 of their 17 league games this season, and I think they've 1-0 in 9 of them. So that's an incredible record. And to get 3-1 quotes on that, I've been really impressed by the organisation aspect. I think they have got lots of centre backs, but Maxime Estev has forged a pretty consistent pairing with CJ Egan-Riley, which always helps if they play together for a while. And I think they're starting to create a few more chances. I saw from the victory at Bristol City on Saturday, there's a sign of things becoming a bit more connected in the opposing half, as opposed to maybe relying so much on individualism as they have for much of the season going forward. So, positive signs for Burnley. Great defensive foundations. I think 3-1, given that they're away to a Stoke side that I would expect to finish in the bottom half. I think I'm pretty happy with that price.
Yeah, I've got to say, out of all the teams that you sort of want to be with on a win to nil, Burnley do feel like one of the better ones in the entire EFL, don't they? Because when they win, it is generally occupied by a clean sheet. Like you say, the last three games all 1-0 against Swansea, Bristol City, and Coventry, respectively. That looks like a game of a similar ilk in terms of their opponent as well, doesn't it? Just about briefly, Gab, while we're on Stoke, just love to get a little bit more of your thoughts about where they are as a club at the moment, because it feels like they've kind of been in this no man's land with a lot of frustration, constant changes of managers for a long time now. What do you think like the mid and long term picture is looking like at Stoke at the moment?
It's a great question because since they've come down to the Championship in 2018, I don't think they've even managed a top half finish in that time. And I think that one of the challenges that they've had is that because the Coates family who own them are wealthy and do have the money to fund expensively assembled squads, it means that they always every season they kind of go in as an ownership with the expectation of the top six, and then that obviously impacts the expectation of the fan base. So whereas a lot of clubs would kind of have this sort of, after you've an unsuccessful period, they might feel like, well, we've got to have a rebuild, we've got to scale things back a bit, we've got to develop a few players, and we've got to be a bit more patient. Stoke City don't really have that, and that's led them to making these massive big financial commitments and the expectation that comes with that, and then maybe struggling to deliver a little bit. So I think they're definitely a club that needs to scale things back a little bit. But I look at some of the talent and quality in that squad. They got a left back called Eric Bocat from France who had some really good reviews over there, and I think they were surprised that he was actually available. They've got Tom Cannon who scored goals at this level before, and he's certainly shown that he can flash a few in on his day. They've got some really talented players there. Weiterberger in midfield as well. But I think they maybe haven't quite amalgamated yet and become a real sort of team unit, and that's going to be the challenge for Stoke City under Narcis Pelach.
Yeah, and it's all about how you spin it, isn't it? Because they have had a lot of draws. You could say, you could quite feasibly turn around and say they've only suffered one loss since September in the league, but there's been a lot of frustration there. And I think the last three fixtures in particular, Millwall, QPR and Preston, to not win any of those probably tells you where the Stoke side's at, and I've got to say, Burnley, they've just got a track record of grinding out these wins, haven't they, to nil? And I think that 3-1 just feels very generous for what you're actually hoping is going to happen there. So I do like that selection. Well, that rounds us off in terms of picks. We will finish by bringing the selections this week up onto the screen. As I say, Gab, there you're going with West Brom to win to nil, Burnley to win to nil as well, and you've got Portsmouth on the double chance against Swansea. What would be your best bet out of them? Not that we're gonna do a point on each, of course, but what would be your nap for anyone interested?
If I was making my nap, I would probably go with Burnley at 3-1. I think that's a really nice price. So hopefully that one can land. But if I can get one of those two wins to nil, then I'm in profit for the week, and
You
hopefully I
certainly
can
are.
eat into that minus a little bit.
Yes, definitely. We want us both in the plus, don't we? As soon as possible. I don't think it'll be long, to be honest. Two great picks last week. Hopefully more of the same. Well, I've gone for West Brom to beat Preston 6-4. I mean, we're both aligned on West Brom, so maybe that tells you a story, or maybe we're both clueless. Who knows? I'll let you decide. Crawley to beat Lincoln. That is a bit of a long shot for me and a little bit of a price play. And then the draw on under 3.5 goals. As I say, it just is a gut feeling that that's the way that game may end up panning out, and you get two scores kind of for the price of one bet there on your side. So we shall see. I think I would have to go with West Brom as the best bet at
Agreed.
6-4. I
Yeah,
think that's
I think
a
we've
bit
got.
big. I think that's a bit big, and I think we both agree that that's one to have on your accumulators this weekend. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching the EFL Betting Show this week. If you haven't already, please do press that subscribe button so you can stay in touch with all things odds now and sports betting. We're very close to 500 subscribers, hoping to hit that in the next week or so, and it'd be great to have you involved for the journey. In the comments who you're backing and what games you're going to watch in the EFL this weekend. Myself and Gab will be back next week, but until then, see you soon and have a good one.